Hi everybody, doing a little repair work on the Cyclone Rake. My impeller is kaput. The blades basically have self-destructed at this point. This thing has been around a long time. I've owned it for at least 10 years and I bought it used, so I really have no idea how old it is. So it's time for a new impeller, and I went to the Cyclone Rake website, ordered the appropriate kit. It came with some very well done instructions that I've been reviewing, and a nice little hardware kit with even a little bit of tooling to make it easier. So I'm not here to tell you everything that's in the instructions, but I will explain the basic approach, because when I was staring at it without knowing anything, it wasn't obvious to me. So first thing is we're just going to pull the hex head bolt out of the shaft, and they give you everything you need to accomplish that. And then what we need to do is, once that's off the shaft, we need to remove this housing, disconnect it from the engine, because we get access to pull the old impeller out from the back of this enclosure. So I'll get it to the point where I've got this off, and then we'll take a look at it. At this point, I've removed all the hardware to remove the blower enclosure. It included a 1/2-inch nut back here. And there are two mounting points here. I'll show you the hardware that went on here. One there, one back here. Whoops, you see it back there. And then we had to remove, there's two screws in here with a support plate underneath here. Let me show you that. Working backwards. This was the two screws bolts had to come out. This slid out after I pulled this cap off the end. Here's what was the lower part of the enclosure. That's the hardware. And then this is the one that was the top bracket. This is the impeller bolt that I pulled out. I did not pull the impeller off the shaft yet. Apparently it should come off easily when I pull off the enclosure. We'll see. Okay, enclosure is off. I did have to use the puller bolt that they had provided to get the impeller off the shaft, but it was really no big deal. So we'll go on to the next step. So I've got it up on the workbench. It wants me to remove this remaining 1/2 inch here, and then remove all these screws back here. It says about removing a heat shield. I don't have a heat shield. That probably tells me it's an older unit. And interesting, the bolts that were here fell to the inside. So I'll have to make sure that I retrieve those, so we put it back together. So I'm going to pull all the hardware, and then we'll take it apart. I can get the old impeller out of here. You can see the other end of the pulling bolt that they gave me, and I did have to use this. So I'm going to get all the hardware out of here, get the old impeller out of here. The old impeller, you can see two of my blades have broken, and it just vibrates like crazy when that happens, and then you got all kinds of other problems. So you really have no choice but to replace this. Okay, so I'm going to start reassembly. Thought I would, I'm just trying to think through all the things that could go wrong. So started out by making sure this would actually fit on the engine shaft the way one would hope it would, but it's worth checking. What we want to do is put this inside the blower in the correct orientation, because once I put everything back together again, I'm not going to be able to flip it over and get it right. Back on here, start going around, putting the new hardware on it. And I want to show you once I'd taken off the back cover, got everything out of it, I found this piece, which is on the inside. And it goes, you know, on the inside poking out this way, so that will have to go back in, right? And I also found these two. What did I miss? Okay, I'm reassembling. And this is the point in the video where I finally realized that I'm an idiot. And I was spending all my time complaining that I couldn't reach into the back of this thing through this chute, failing to realize I could reach in through here and get access to all these different things that I needed. So, you know, that's how I'm approaching this. And it's much easier if you go in through the front. I have this reassembled now, Loctite on these special screws, and I've put these pieces on the back. I'm just holding them in place so I don't lose them with some nuts. So I'm going to put some anti-seize on the engine shaft per the instructions. Then we'll go about trying to put this back on. Well, I was able to get it back together. I did struggle trying to get everything lined up and slide that new impeller onto the engine shaft while trying to hold everything up. It was a little tricky. Wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it by myself. But the little trick I used is I put some boards underneath the housing to try and hold it up to an appropriate height so I could focus most of my attention on that impeller. And, you know, watching down the back, and I did have to go down there and hold that key in place on the shaft, but I did get it on. And once that was on, just a matter of bolting everything back together again. So seems to all have good clearance. Everything worked out great. If I had been smarter and not messed around trying to reach everything through here, I could have just reached through there and got those screws removed a lot easier. Pretty sure I could have reached in there with my vice grip and held all those fasteners in place. So there you go. That's my experience. Hope that helps you. Good luck out there.